Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Cathedra webinar. We are coming to you live on March 12th, 2026. If anybody in the room is an NLC webinar first timer, know that our webinars get their name from the Creek word for learning. And today's Cathedra webinar is going to be about creative thinking and innovation from your instructor, Dr. William R. Latchford. This is the 9th class in a full series on strategic leadership and innovation. My name is Brooke Warrington. I'm the Training and Development Specialist here at the Native Learning Center. We're so happy you could join us for the webinar today. If you could follow along while I read the disclaimer aloud, this webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. We also have our copyright infringement law printed here, so this is just a friendly reminder that the webinar materials are protected by copyright, trademark, trade secret, and other intellectual property laws. Speaking of the materials, if you have missed any of the sessions prior to today's, as I said, this is a full leadership series that Dr. Latchford has been doing, and you can find all the previous sessions housed on the courses section. And then I have also put a link to today's presentation slides for you in the chat already. And assuming you're going to join us for the rest of the series, because it will carry on much longer, you will just log in like you did today and click on that green banner, and you can join. We tend to ask that you join with listen-only capabilities because we are recording the webinar, so it just helps to protect the recording from any audio feedback. And if you've joined and you found that your sound is coming out of the wrong device, maybe you're trying to use your headphones, maybe you have a Bluetooth speaker, whatever the case might be, you can pull up a list of your speaker devices down at the bottom of your screen. Where I have a telephone icon, you might have a headphones icon, but either way, that's going to bring up a list of your speaker devices and you can select the proper audio output. Even though we ask that you join on mute to protect the recording, we do still, of course, want to encourage class participation. We want to know your questions. We want to know your comments. If there's any tech support issues that I can help you navigate through, we will primarily rely on the public chat for this. If you don't have yours open, you can go all the way to the left side of your screen, and there is a gray messages panel. If you click on public chat, you'll see what I have here in the screenshot, and it'll open up a chat between you, the webinar attendees, me, the Native Learning Center staff, and your instructor, Dr. Latchford. You'll just come down here to where it says send message to public chat, type in what you want to say or ask, and then you can either hit the enter button or you could click on the cute little paper airplane button, and that'll send it in where we all can see it. Also on this same messages panel is the shared notes feature. If you open that up on your end, you're going to see a lot of helpful links that you can use. There's one to the webinar feedback survey once the webinar concludes. There's one, again, for the presentation slides that I put in the chat for you. There's one to register for our email blasts, so you always know when we have a webinar happening. A lot of good stuff in there. I encourage you to check it out when you have a chance. And if you did join and you have your mic enabled, not a problem. But if you want to mute, you can just come down here to where your microphone icon would be, and you can click on that. And then let's say you ask something throughout the webinar and you think maybe we missed your question or your comment, you could always use that hand raise feature that's all the way to the bottom right of your screen to draw our attention to it. I would love if everybody introduced themselves in the chat. It's fun to see everybody who's present and kind of just test out the public chat together. You could let us know your name, where you're tuning in from. It's fun to see all the different tribal nations that are represented on the webinar. Your work or your role in Indian country that might have led you to the webinar. You might just be here for personal information. That's great too. And then last but not least, your tribal affiliation. You might be a tribal employee and you therefore do not have your own affiliation, and that's okay. You are also welcome, not to fear. And then just a quick final note while y'all are introducing yourselves in the chat. We want to do our best to avoid clicking on the red menu column that's all the way to the left of your screen. If you don't have your options expanded, you might just see those little icons instead of the text next to it. But I just want to give you a heads up because if you click on that menu, it will immediately pull you out of the webinar. There's not going to be, are you sure you want to leave or any kind of that message. If you do accidentally click on it and it pulls you out, you can always just rejoin once again by clicking on the green banner. But I wanted to give you a heads up just in case. All right, y'all. While you are introducing yourselves in the chat, it is with great pleasure that I introduce your webinar instructor for today, Dr. William R. Latchford. And Will, I have made you presenter now.
All right. Thank you, Brooke. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar on creative thinking and innovation. This is a pretty exciting webinar for me because I think it kind of brings us out of our shell sometimes when we're in a rut or we're so busy in the day-to-day crisis of our normal activities at our workplace. So I look at this seminar and this class that I do as one of the ones that kind of jumpstarts people and kind of gives them a little bit of opportunity to start thinking a different way, start having a new foundation that they can be excited for. And sometimes that's what it is. It creates that excitement for people to kind of start fresh the next day or even in the afternoon after the seminar. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving yourself the opportunity to enhance your leadership portfolio. As Brooke mentioned, this is one of many webinars that we're doing in this fiscal year. We have several more to go that will go through September. And if you're not aware, that's not on the screen. And I believe it's in August out in New Mexico. Native Learning Center is sponsoring a leadership boot camp. You can reach out to Brooke or Jasmine in NLC, and they'll have the information for you on those exact dates and how to register if you want to enhance your leadership even more. So that's it's going to be a 2.5 day really good in-person leadership boot camp that we hope you walk away with a lot of new direction that can enhance and improve your everyday environment and the culture that you're in. So we look forward to either seeing you on the webinar or in the future leadership boot camp. As I talked earlier, we're going to talk a little bit today about creative thinking and innovation for leaders. And this is really a mindset, right? Sometimes we're in such a crisis and our everyday sometimes get hijacked, right? We have a plan for the day and we get into the office and everything that we thought we were going to get accomplished doesn't get accomplished. So we're going to talk about that, give you a little bit of information and tools that can help you navigate when it comes to your programs in the future and some of those things that you're going to need, right? You're going to need to develop not just yourself, but also your employees to provide that good customer service to the communities that you serve. So again, I'd like to welcome you while you're here and why you joined. Hopefully it's to just better your portfolio, but you're going to recognize that traditional approaches aren't enough in today's rapid changing environment as we go through the day. And really you're seeking out, because the world is moving so fast and our environments are moving so quick, you're seeking out practical tools that can help you in your everyday environment, right? Maybe slow some things down to improve your team, to improve your organization, or even just to improve your office setup, right? That's something that we sometimes fail to recognize, is that sometimes just that innovation can help us improve just the work environment by changing things around, moving desks around, changing offices around. Although people may not like it at first, the reality is if they're part of the process and part of that change, there's innovation in that where sometimes it jumpstarts them and you get a better work product from your employees. So today we hope that you've gained a little bit of information and tools that can kind of spark your creative thinking, right? And give you those techniques and problem solving ideas and frameworks so you can implement it back in your programs and in the reservations that you're on. Today, we're going to talk about understanding what creativity is and innovation and what separates the two. We're going to look at your creativity identity, right? We're going to build that creativity environment. We're going to look at the problem solving with creativity. And we're going to look at generations, right? There's a generation technique that we want to look at because generations are all different. My generation is different than some of you on the call. And so we look at things differently, right? I'm not in the techie generation. I know enough about technology to be dangerous, but the newer generation is really good at technology. So I have to lean on them. And as a leader, sometimes I have to break out of my shell and get them to provide that jumpstart for me. And by doing that, I'm tapping into their creative thinking and their innovation in the specific environment that we live here in the 21st century. A little bit about myself. I'm a 32-year veteran of public safety. I've had the opportunity 32 years ago to start with the Seminole Tribe of Florida, race through the ranks of law enforcement, and eventually retire in 2023 as the executive director of public safety. Great opportunity that was bestowed upon me, and it's only right for me to continue to give back. And that's why I'm sitting with you here today, is because, you know, all that knowledge and that skill and the ability that I learned, and I made those mistakes, and I corrected them and made those decisions that we all falter on, and then you do better, and you teach people to replace you. Those are opportunities that we always want to pass along to others, because what we learn today, we can pass along to somebody else to improve and not make the same mistakes that we made. But when we do that, we want to make sure as leaders that they understand that lesson, right? They don't have to make the same mistake, but they want to understand what that lesson is that you learn from when you do make those mistakes, because mistakes create opportunities. Opportunities create those circumstances that we can learn from and we can pass it along to others. So I'm a doctor of criminology leadership, and what that basically means is that really my forte has been in leadership, not just in public safety, but in any organization, from private organization, Fortune 100 or 500 companies, governments, tribal governments, even sports teams. So I've had the opportunity to really navigate a wide range of organizations, and that gives me that opportunity to share that type of knowledge with everybody and pass it along, because we can all learn from each other, right? Regardless of what degrees we have, what titles that we carry, it doesn't matter. The reality is what we do with that information and how we pass it down as leaders and how we improve that environment that we're in. That's really what matters, and the legacy that we want to create for ourselves. So I appreciate you being on today, and I'm honored to be your instructor. A little bit about Native Peacekeeper Consulting Group. It's funny that we're talking about creativity and innovation, because this morning we sat down and we had an organization meeting and we talked about new ideas, and I'll share with some of those ideas as we go through the presentation. But even in a private organization that we have, where we have, you know, consultants with over 182 years of experience in management, from law enforcement to private business to attorneys in the United States and in Canada, you know, we're sitting and having those discussions about what can we do that can be creative, and start thinking of different things that can make an organization better. So it's not absent from just private or small organizations, right? So what you're doing in the tribal government organizations really is something that should be doing in every organization. And really what determines that is how good and how well we're doing that. So Native Peacekeeper Consultant Group is on that same philosophy, and the mission from our owner, who you see here in the pictures. Her whole philosophy is just make things better, just enhance people's knowledge and skills, be there to surround them, come around them, support them, and give them the opportunity to have tools at their disposal so they can be better at what they do, and they can provide a better service to their service population. A little disclaimer, I shouldn't say anything about this topic, but if I do say something that's contradictory to your policies, we'd like you to follow your policies. Your policies are important to you. You following your policies are important to us. We want to make sure you're successful. So please follow your policies. If a contradiction does happen, have a discussion with your supervisor, and then change your policy if you need to change it. If you don't, then keep your policy and continue to move on following your policies. Policies are important. They give you the opportunity to provide structure and guidance. Learning objectives, as you can see, we're going to go over several different learning objectives today. This is a pretty long, lengthy PowerPoint, so I'm going to skip that. So we'll go through the process of the learning objectives as we go through the PowerPoint today. So the innovation imperative, as you can see, 94% of executives say innovation is critical to their business strategies, right? So we think about, how do we move forward? How does an organization move forward? And as leaders, what's our responsibility? So today, what I want you to ponder is this question as we have this webinar today. I want you to think about when that last time you challenged the way your organization did something, right? And actually changed it. When was that last time that you challenged and you went against the grain on the way the organization did something and actually changed it, right? It wasn't just a discussion. It was a thought that happened. It was discussions that happened. It was movement in the organization, and then it changed. Think about that for a moment, right? Think about that for a moment and carry that thought through as we have that discussion today. Use that as your foundation as we go through the webinar today, right? And I'm not talking about anything that is from a small improvement, right? I'm not talking about the things that we may do every day. I'm talking about a big improvement that your organization did and it actually changed, right? Not just doing something faster, right? But truly reimagining how something can be done within your organization. And that's what I want you to think about as we go through this process today is what in the past was truly imagined and then changed through the process, or what are those things that you can imagine right now as we're having this discussion that needs that push, right? You need that push to reimagine it, redevelop it, put that change process in a place to get it done so it's better for you, it's better for your environment, and it's better for the community that you serve. Because here's the reality that many leaders face today. And us as leaders, we face this in this 21st century, right? The world around us is changing faster than any system that we have, right? It's changing faster than any policy that we can write, and sometimes even faster than our thinking, right? You can get on the phone and you can pick up the phone and you're getting an answer in a split second, right? The world is moving faster than we can keep up with. What worked 5 years ago is not going to work today, right? Sometimes what worked yesterday isn't going to work today, and what works today may not work a year from now. It may not work 6 months from now. So as leaders in the position that we hold and that responsibility that we hold, we face a very difficult challenge than leaders 15, 20, 30 years ago. I'm a third generation law enforcement officer. My dad retired as a police chief, and the way he led, and I can tell you today how he led. I can see it and visualize it, how he led when he was a police chief. When I was back, I want to tell my age here, but back in high school many, many years ago, I saw how he was the police chief. I saw how he led. And that wouldn't work today in this environment, the way he led. It worked in that environment, right? The innovation and the creativity of how he led back then was successful then. But as the world evolved and things are getting faster and things are changing and the dynamics, people are smarter today and more intelligent and intuitive, I should say, than they were in the past, right? Because they have more resources. It doesn't mean they're better. It's just we have more resources at our fingertips. And so leaders today face a very difficult challenge than leaders faced 20, 30 years ago. It's no longer enough just to be simple, manage the operations. It's no longer enough just to carry the flag and say, I'm the boss, we're just going to do what we've always done, right? That is no longer acceptable when it comes to leadership and being creative and innovative. Leaders today, you must create an environment that develops the future, right? That's what part of leadership dynamic is today, is you have to create, as a leader, you have to create what the future is going to look like for you, for the people that work for you, for the program and the organization overall, and for the community that you serve. And that future for you, for your employees, for the program, for the organization and the community that you serve depends on innovation. No doubt, hands down, that future will not be a future unless you have innovation. So I'll pose another question to you, and I just want you to ponder this question. If your organization disappeared tomorrow, right, and there was nobody in your organization, that organization disappeared tomorrow, would another organization be able to simply step in and do exactly what you do? Or would people say no one could replace them because they do things differently? So I'll ask it again. Would another organization simply step in and do exactly what you do if it disappears tomorrow? Or would people come out and say no one could replace them because they do things differently. The difference, that ability to think differently, is where innovation begins, right? That's where innovation begins, is in that difference. The ability to think differently and do not settle for the status quo. Don't settle for this is the way we've always done it. During my career in public safety, I learned something very important about leadership over the years. And I learned organizations often believe innovation comes from technology, right? And I just had told you in the very beginning that I know enough about technology to be dangerous. But in reality, innovation comes from the people who are willing to question the way things have always been done, right? Years ago, when I was promoted to be the police chief, there was a big push to bring technology in. And what I watched the technology take the decision-making and the ability to have individuals use their creativity and innovation. That technology removed that creativity and innovation because we were pushing too hard to bring technology in, thinking technology was going to fix everything for us, right? Technology will not do that. Technology is there to support you, to support your mission. It's not to take over what that human contact is going to be. And I know there's a lot of discussion, a lot of opinion, especially with AI out there now, that's going, and there's some different programs and different professions that are really being challenged with AI right now. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like a human interaction. There's nothing like human innovation, right? We all think differently. We're all special in our own right? We're not always all right, but we're all special in the things that we do. So some of the most effective changes that I've seen in my career and in the organization, it didn't come from expensive systems. It didn't come from, hiring experts to come in and tell you what they think you want to hear, or tell you what somebody told them that they're supposed to say. It didn't come from people like that. It came from leaders who asked simple but powerful questions, right? And those simple and powerful questions were along the lines of, why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way that we can do it to be just as successful? And what if we tried something different? What really, or how will that hurt us if we tried something different? Those three questions right there unlock creativity. They unlock our brain to really dig deep down inside of ourselves and be creative, which is the starting point of innovation. And why does this topic matter? Why should we have a discussion as leaders, right? People have said to me before that, this is something everybody should be able to figure out what their creative thinking is. They're human, right? They're educated. They've been to training. The reality is they haven't been to creative thinking training. There's classes out there you can go to, but just because you go to a class doesn't mean that you become proficient or become that expert that is using that creative thinking in the right way. So today's organizations, we face enormous pressures. Your housing organizations, you face enormous pressures out there. You face that rapid change that's happening from your community. You're facing that rapid change from a political environment. You're facing that rapid change based on policies and practices that you have to follow and you're mandated to follow that change all the time. You're facing limited resources. You're being demanded to do more with less. You're being asked to really dig down and push everybody to the limits because you don't have those resources that you need, right? And then expectations. People's expectations are rising, right? People are learning more every day than the past. And if I had to ask, and we were sitting in a classroom and I asked you to raise your hand and ask you how many of you like to read, right? Or how many of you would rather look on the internet and learn from the internet than sitting down in a quiet room with a book and just reading the book, right? We've all been conditioned in one way or another, but a lot of society is more conditioned now to be on the internet. and not necessarily sit down and read a book. That's how the previous generations have learned, or one avenue that they've learned is to sit and read a book. The traditional leadership playbook doesn't always provide the answers, right? Because that's all they had was a book. Now you have social media. You have all these different platforms that are providing different leadership, different types of answers. And then you're taking that and you're trying to figure out how that applies to you. Part of that process is why creative thinking is no longer optional for leaders. It's essential. Being creative is now essential because there's more information flowing. And if you do not tap into your creative and innovation environment as a leader, you're going to be left behind. You're going to be left behind. The people that work for you are not going to follow you. The community is going to lose trust in you. And then that's when the world comes falling down on us. So we want to prevent that today. In fact, studies have shown that the vast majority of executives believe innovation is critical to their strategy and long-term success. Leadership should be recognizing that innovation has to be part of the strategic solution moving forward. But here's the challenge. Most innovations or most organizations talk about innovation, but very few actually know how to create and have it be created consistently, right? They talk about it, sit around a room, have a couple hours of a staff meeting, and we sit around and talk about it. And then once we leave the staff meeting, it kind of loses its water a little bit, right? We're not consistent about it, but we were really good while we sat in the meeting. So in today's session, the next 80 minutes, we're going to explore something very important. We're going to explore how you as leaders can intentionally build creativity and innovation into your leadership approach. It's not just a buzzword, and I don't want you to get caught up into the buzzword because I know there's a lot of buzzword and words out there, right? But I want you to think of this as a practical leadership skill, right? It's like communication, right? Active listening, right? Being resilient. I want you to put this in your tool chest and use it. Bring it out every day, even if it's for 15 to 20 minutes. Bring out your creativity, right? Tap into your brain and bring out that intelligence that I may not know you, but I know you have that intelligence to bring out something that's special that can impact your environment, to impact your employees. So think of it as a practical leadership skill. We're going to talk about understanding creativity and innovation. We're going to recognize your own creativity, leadership styles, and strengths. We're going to build the environments where teams feel safe to share information, right? Psychological safety is important. Those are words. That's a word and a phrase now that's being pushed and being used out there to make sure the environment is sterile, that we all have a nice environment to work in. And we have an environment that is productive for us to grow as employees and as leaders. And most importantly, we want to turn our ideas and our employees' ideas and even the community's ideas into successful results. Because creativity without action is just an idea. Innovation is when those ideas become our reality, right? So creativity without action is just an idea. Innovation is when the idea becomes reality. So before we get started, I want you to just put something in the chat for me. If you have an opportunity to do, I want you to be comfortable. I want you to put in the chat because I want you to see that we're all in this together. And sometimes what we're experiencing it together. And we get that feeling as leaders that we're one on an island of our own and nobody's going through or hasn't gone through what we're going through. But the reality is a lot of people are in the same boat, right? So what I want you to write into the chat is what's one challenge in your organization right now that might require a new way of thinking to solve, right? Think about that for a second. What is one challenge right now in your organization that you see that innovation can improve on if it's implemented the right way, and it can solve that challenge that you're going through? It could be from staffing. It could be from community engagement. policy development, operation efficiency, right? Could be a number of different things. And those are things that I'm giving you some of the answers if you have a brain lock, right? But those are those things that we all deal with, right? So I ask you to put that in there because I want you all to see that we're in it together. We're all in it to win it, but we're all experiencing a lot of the similar circumstances that we're going through. So when you have an opportunity, go through the chat and see the responses, and you'll see that some of those things will relate with you on the environment that you're in. And whatever it is, keep that challenge in mind throughout today's session, right? Keep that challenge in mind throughout today's session. You may read somebody else's challenge and it may apply to you, right? You're going to have more than one challenge. But keep that in mind as we go through the session. And my hope is that you walk away from this webinar not only with new ideas, but with a practical tool that can improve your leadership immediately. So with that said, let's begin to establish the foundation of understanding creativity and innovation. What exactly is the difference between creativity and innovation? Because while those terms are often used interchangeably, right, and some may not even use them in their vocabulary, and that's fine, they're actually two very different things. And that's what we're going to take a look at. So creativity and innovation, understanding the distinction. Creativity is the ability to generate novel or useful ideas, right? Creativity, we focus on the idea, right? We focus on the divergent thinking. It's conceptual and abstract. It exists in the realm of thought and potential that we can do something or implement something. And it's really that first step, right? We're being creative. We're tapping into our brain that is creating a new idea that we can take and formalize and put it into action. Innovation is the successful implementation of that idea, that creative idea that you thought of. You focus on the execution and then you convert your thinking. It's practical and it's concrete, and it exists in the realm of action, putting it into play in reality. And it's the ultimate goal. That's where we want to end up. So in leadership terms, creativity is thinking new things. Innovation is doing those new things. Leadership terms, creativity is thinking new things, and innovation is doing new things. Now, there's an innovation per spectrum that is important that we need to recognize. And innovation exists on an incremental improvement. It's not radical. Although sometimes we make it a radical transformation, the reality is to be successful, it should be incremental. So everybody kind of gets and grows together in an organization. But these four areas here complement each other and they impact each other. The incremental innovation is small continuous improvements that exist when a product or service or process is put into place, right? So that would be something similar. I put the example up there, would be like the annual smartphone updates, which improve your camera or your security or your processes, right? Incremental. Every couple of months or every couple of weeks, we're getting updates where it says tonight your phone is going to be updated, or do you want to update it now, right? That comes incrementally when they make those changes with your phone company, right? The architectural innovation is when we reconfigure existing systems and components in new ways, right? An example with that would be if you watch Netflix shifting from DVD rentals to streaming platforms, right? I'm sure some of you, like me, are remember, if you heard of Blockbuster, right? We've heard of Blockbuster. We used to go and get CDs of the movies at Blockbuster, right? Or Redbox, right? think Redbox is still around in some areas around the country. But now everybody's streaming. Everybody's streaming cable, the movies, right? You don't even necessarily have to go to a movie anymore. You can stream it on the apps. That was designed architecturally. That's innovation that somebody thought of and designed and said, you know what? Let's put this right at their fingertips whenever they want it. They don't even have to get in a car to go anywhere. They can stream it. And we all thought it was great years ago when cable television came in and Comcast, Xfinity, all these cable, AT&T or DirecTV. Now you have YouTube, you have all these other channels that you don't even need a cable television anymore or cable service, because you can get on and you can see the same thing through YouTube, through the apps. Architectural innovation. People are thinking different ways. They're not just staying in what is existing. They're thinking of new things, making things better, and improving it for everybody. Then there's disruptive innovation, which is creating new markets or radical change that exist, that already exist in the environment, right? So now we used to rent hotels, right? Airbnb is very big right now. Airbnb is transforming the hospitality industry. People are they're traveling around. They're traveling around, and instead of staying in hotels, they're realizing, wow, I could stay in a house and I could pay less. And I'm staying in a bigger house and it's private. I don't have to worry about if I'm on the second floor and there's somebody up above me that drops all their luggage and drops the TV remote and walks really heavy because they have heavy feet. I can stay in an Airbnb, and either I'm going to pay the same or maybe a little less, or maybe I'm going to pay a little bit more, but it's more comfortable for me. So somebody had an innovative decision where they disrupted what the status quo was. They disrupted the hospitality industry. So hotels are having to deal with, what do we do with Airbnbs now? If you live in a town that has heavy sports arenas where people come in, they used to get hotels, and hotels used to raise the prices on the weekends. Now, people that are going to the sports games, they're renting Airbnbs. They were tapped into by somebody's innovation. And then you have the radical innovation, right? The revolutionary changes based on new technology and approaches. When Apple or one of these phone companies, big social media deployment, when it comes to, we have this new phone, the Apple iPhone 17 or 18, whatever number that they're at, right? And then you see on the news or you see on social media the lines at the Apple store. People are going there. Michael Jordan's shoes. Michael Jordan's going to drop a new shoe, or he's going to drop an old style, which is a new shoe. And you see just kids going to the store or even getting online to get their shoes because there's only so many available, right? That's that radical innovation that's tapping into society. We as leaders, we need to foster all of these innovations, right? And we need to know when they apply and what they apply to. What innovation from our creativity can we apply to, right? If I know as a new leader that I go into an organization and I know there's low-hanging fruit that's not going to hurt the organization, but it's going to take care of employees, and it's a decision that's an easy decision for me, where maybe I want to issue new uniform shirts, and I know that people have been complaining about the old uniform shirts. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to buy everybody new uniform shirts. I'm going to make a radical decision to say, you know what, we may not even have the money in the budget, but I'm going to go ahead and do this because it's low-hanging fruit and it's going to change the organizational culture because I made this decision. I'm going to be radical about it. I'm going to put it out there without anybody having a second thought. And once everybody hears we're getting new shirts, if that's been the complaint, everyone now is going to be coming back to the center. They're not just going to be complaining about their uniform. They're going to appreciate somebody is taking care of them. Somebody is looking at what their needs are. Somebody is, more importantly, listening to them. So when we look at the business case of creative leadership, I draw this diagram up just to kind of give you a visual of how it actually works, right? Because you really have a nice positive impact when you're creative, right? When you're creative with your employees, you get better commitment from them, right? You see, and when you allow them to be creative, you see them be more agile. They show more initiative, right? They're faster at turning their work around because they have positive things to look forward to, right? They also market the organization a little bit better. Research has shown that 15% of the market is increased and it grows. That has a direct impact on that service that you're providing. When you look at creative leadership, it enhances the problem solving, right? Cross-function ideation. Fewer percent of escalations happen within an organization. When you allow people to be creative, you don't have as many disruptions. You have strong, decisive decision quality of work that's being proactively presented in your environment. Research has shown that it improves engagement with your employees. Your employees see that it's about them. It's not just about others. There's a balance, right? It is about others, but it's also about employees. So when you allow employees to be creative through your leadership, you make a difference. Creative leadership just doesn't produce better ideas. It transforms your program. It transforms the organization. It transforms the environment that you're in every day from the inside out. And what that positiveness on the inside will be transposed to the people that you serve. And that creates that sustainability. And it creates a competitive advantage that it's hard to replicate. Go back to the question. Well, can somebody just step in the shoes and do the job that you're doing? Or is it going to be too difficult because you're too creative, you're too innovative, and you allow the people to have that same mindset? As you look at creating your identity, right? The myth of creative types, identity types. Creativity is not a fixed trait. It's a skill that we have to, one, identify with, we have to develop, and then we have to stay on top of, right? It's just not something that just comes out. We have to work at it. And I will tell you, I'm not a good artist, but I can be creative, and it takes me a while to draw or paint something. I hate painting houses, so please, no one ask me to do any of that. But I can be creative, but it takes me a little bit to get jump started. 85% of creative capacity is learned. It's not inherited, right? So my parents didn't pass down, and if it was, I got the short end of the stick. They didn't pass down the artistry to me because I'm not a very good artist. Regular practice can increase creativity output by over 400%. So if you're in your environment and you're allowing yourself to be creative and you're allowing your employees to tap into their creativity, right, and their smartness that they can bring out to make your organization better, you potentially can raise the output by over 400%. Research has shown that if good leaders create a good environment with creativity to allow people to kind of break out of that and show their creativity, that you could see a high end of over 400% of productivity. Creative thinking skills transform across domains. It's effective. People see that positive environment. They see that creativity and they want a part of it. They may not know how to do it, so they gravitate towards that environment. Leaders who develop creativity show enhanced problem solvings in all areas. Because when you're being creative, challenges happen, problems happen. But since you're being creative, you're already in that mindset to improve things. You're already in that problem solving arena where when you identify that problem, it's easier to fix. because you're already in that fixing mode. John Cleese came up with a quote. It says, creativity is not a talent. It's a way of operating, right? So we're practicing creativity to be permanent, not to be perfect. Practice creativity to be permanent, excuse me. So we want to recognize your creativity's strength. We all have natural creative tendencies that influence how we approach our innovation, right? So you have the explorer. These type of individuals excel at discovering new information and possibilities. Their strengths are they're curious, they're research trend, and they're spotty. I would consider myself as an explorer. I see something, I want to dive in, I want to learn more about it. Then there's others there's the artist. They transform ideas into original concepts and expressions. They have a great imagination. They have a great visualization of where they want to go. And I talked to you about earlier about our meeting that we had this morning for our company. And the owner came up with a philosophy that we all bought into. And when she was talking about it, it was something that kind of light bulb went off to me. And I put her in the category of the artist because she took all these classes and all these potential topics that we have been asked to teach around the country and Indian country and in different organizations, from governments to private businesses. And she put them in bundles to where it's not individual courses anymore. It's strategic plans when it comes to training and looking at, and if you get this training class, the next class you should have is this class. So she mapped out a whole process that we're getting ready to build off of so we can deliver to our customers how we're going to deliver training and how each one complements the one before, which is always showing improvement in the people who attend. So it's not just reading one book and that's the end of it. You're constantly getting training, and the training is building off of the course and the topic before. You have the warrior. Champions ideas and overcomes obstacles to implementation. We all are warriors because every time we implement something, there's always challenges. And I will tell you, one thing we need to remember is just as important as our creativity and our innovation is how we're going to implement that innovation. Because the innovation is important, but just as important is how we implement it. But the warrior, they're persistent. They don't give up. They're resourceful. They know where to go if they don't have an answer. They know who to go call. They know who to contact. And if they don't know, they sure as heck go find out. They don't sit back and wait for it to come to them. And then you have the judge. The judge evaluates ideas, refines them through critical thinking. This is the thinker. Sits down, kind of navigates everything. Sometimes the brain hurts, right? Sometimes I've been in rooms with leaders who you can see the answer, but they're not there yet. They're still evaluating it. And you even say it out loud and they don't even hear you because they're still going through the process of analyzing the entirety of how it's going to roll out. Great creative leaders recognize and leverage all four of these attributes when it comes to creative strengths. And they acknowledge the natural progression and that natural preference of individuals, right? We all have a comfort zone. Don't forget people's comfort zone, but you want to tap into their creative mindset as well. As we look at developing your creative mindset, research has identified cognitive habits that we all have that are essential to creative leadership. We're all curious. We're curious. We ask those questions. What if? Why not? Questions that challenge assumptions. That's what we want to do as leaders. We have it inside of us. We got to bring it out. So as a leader, you want to be curious. You want to ask those what if questions or those why not questions. Why shouldn't we do this? Why shouldn't we implement this new practice or policy? What you can do to help you get into this mindset, you could practice for every 15 minutes a day. on learning something outside of your field. When they gave me the opportunity to be over the fire department, police officers and firemen, they work really well together. And they provide a great service to the community. They're not perfect, but they work really well together. But it's two separate professions. And there's a perception that they're aligned and the professions may be similar. Well, the reality is they're not. My brother was a fire chief, so I had the opportunity to lean on him. But I made it a point every day, and I didn't tell the firemen this, but I made it a point every day to go be in their environment so I can learn their environment. And I would ask those what-if questions. And I would ask, why don't you do this? Have you thought about it? What would it hurt? And I would tap into their creative mindset. And I took the time every day, regardless of what reservation I was at, I would make sure I would go into that environment. That wasn't my traditional environment. Law enforcement was my traditional environment. Being in the firehouse, that's not traditional for me. I had to force myself out of my comfort zone to go and be curious so I can be a better leader for them. Adaptability. You want to embrace the ambiguity and you want to remain flexible when change happens. We all are resistant when we're pulled out of our comfort zone. And we categorize that as we don't like change, because that's what happens when we're pulled out of our comfort zone. We see a change and we don't like change. But as leaders, we have to be flexible. So you could practice the adaptability, intentionally alter your routine weekly and notice your reactions. I did that as well. I would end up driving different areas, going home in different directions every day. And if you think about your routine every day, you have a normal routine every day. If it's driving to work every day, if it's getting up from your chair to go to lunch every day, it's at the same time. You go to the same room. Your mannerisms are the same. Start recognizing those mannerisms. Start recognizing your behavior. Start recognizing the things and the routines that you do every day. And change them. Change them and see if you can do them better. See if there's a better way to put it into play in your environment. Persistence. Somebody who's a creative mindset that's persistent is viewing obstacles as challenges rather than roadblocks. These are the individuals that never see anything negative in anybody. They're individuals that just see all the positive. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And when they face that rejection or they face that crisis that's happened, they're calm as a cucumber. And they just keep going where they're not going to let the roadblock stop them. They're going to embrace that challenge. They're persistent to be successful. And then there's openness. Consider the diverse perspective, right? Don't be so quick to judge. Don't be so quick to come to the decision. And a lot of times as leaders, we do that in meetings because somebody will ask you a question and you may not like the way they asked it, and you come out, you snap the answer out, right? Recognize those times. Sit back. Let people deliver whatever that message is. But you have the opportunity to control your mindset. Wait to speak. Don't just necessarily come out and answer. Let them get it out. Talk about it a little bit. Because you're going to teach them without telling them you're teaching them. You are open to whatever their decision or whatever their opportunity they want to present. These mindsets can be deliberate and they can be deliberately cultivated within your environment, but you have to choose to recognize your curiosity, the adaptability, the persistence, and the openness, creative mindsets, and know how they apply. As we look at building creative environments, right? So you're the architect of the culture within your environment. And I'm not talking tribal culture, I'm talking organizational culture. And sometimes how we look at that is how our physical space, and does that inspire innovation? I've been in offices around the police department, fire department, emergency management departments. I've been out in offices outside of government. And there's no pictures on the walls. There's no motivational topics. There's nothing that promotes a positive environment. There's just bare white or peach walls, right? Maybe we need to look at some motivational practices that are out there that we can put to give our individuals that work for us the opportunity to stay positive, right? Just by reading something. A lot of times you can go on social media and you may read a Bible verse that somebody posted on there, or even a quote, right? And that quote brings you to something in your life that is positive, or something in your life that you need to reflect on. So your environment can inspire innovation. Your also environment can knock down innovation. So you have to be careful with that. So take note of your office. Maybe it's time to bring your staff in together to say, hey, the office has been set up like this for the last 15 years. I'd like some ideas on how we can change the office up to make it more work environment friendly, to make it more productive for us. Give them the opportunity to have input, and you will see their creativity. You will see their mindset. The goal is to create space that signals permission to think differently. And that's what you want to do. You want to give them that opportunity to have input. You want to give them the opportunity to tap into their creative mindset to make your organization better, to make the service that you provide to the community better. And there's different ways that you can do that. You can have a staff meeting and have everybody take a piece of paper out and write down those in each office, how they think the office should be set up. Or have them go around the office, the office building, and sit in the office for 15 minutes and just look at the walls and see how the office can be set up. I'll share with you something that I know factually, because I'm not going to name the individual or the organization he works for, but he does a dynamic work product that I've never seen before. He's in a hospitality industry. He sits, when he's visualizing the way the hotel or the room is going to set up, he sits in a room that's a mock-up of the way the hotel is or the room is, and he sits there for hours just looking at the walls, looking how the wall complements the carpet, how the pictures that were chosen, how they flow with the wall, how it flows with the lamp that's next to the bed, how does it flow with the night table that's there, how does it flow with the sheets that are on the bed, the comforter. And he goes through the entire 360 of the hotel room. The innovation in that, to me, is just tremendous, that he takes the time as a leader with his staff and looks at every little intricate part to ensure that the customer has a time of their life when they visit their hotel and feels like they're at home and can be comfortable in that environment. So you have the opportunity to do the same thing in your work environment. Create an environment that people feel like they're at home and that they feel rewarded every time they go into their work environment. We talked about, or I mentioned a little bit about earlier, about psychological safety. This is very big right now. And I believe it's going into the future. It's something that we need to focus on a little bit more. And it's the foundation, to me, of really where creative culture comes from. Amy Edmondson from Business Harvard School, her quote that I found, which I thought was excellent, was, in a culture of psychological safety, people believe that if they make a mistake or fail, they will not be punished or humiliated, right? We all can say through our career, we made mistakes and we either felt we were going to be punished or we did get punished for a mistake that we made, and not necessarily how we were dealt with. Did it have to be dealt with that way? So we want to create those psychological safety environments, right? So 27% innovation impacts that psychological safety, research has found. Teams with high psychological safeties are 27% more likely to generate breakthrough ideas. That means that if you have a good environment where people feel safe to make mistakes, they feel safe to speak out, even though they may not necessarily agree with the boss, they can speak out. And when they speak out, it's okay to have an opinion and have a voice and have input. It's found through research that that organization has 27% higher of success than the others that don't have psychological safety. 76% speak up. In that same research, 76% of employees who withhold valuable ideas due to fear of negative consequences, right? That research that's out there is showing that when people speak up and they're challenged because they spoke up, because leaders don't want employees to speak up, 76% of those employees start to go down this path where they're withholding information. And you'll never know it as a leader. And something will happen, but you had the opportunity to find out before it happened and to fix it. 41% of performance advantage of teams with high psychological safeties over those with low safety. You have a higher performance edge when you create that psychological safety for employees. You as a leader must model the environment, right? Model the environment. Give the opportunity to listen to your employees. Give the opportunity to hear your employees. Be vulnerable through your process of being a leader. It's okay not to know. It's okay to let them know you don't know. And celebrate the learning lessons that you get from the failures, right? We don't do that enough. We should recognize the fact that, okay, we failed. It wasn't intentional, but you know what? Guess what came out of it? Something positive came out of it. We all learned. We took pride in the solution of it, and we're making it better for the future. Celebrate your wins, but also celebrate your failures when you make them wins. So I identified 7 dimensions of a creative culture, right? So these dimensions, as a leader, you must intentionally design the elements rather than leaving them to chance, right? So these are 7 that I identified. You want to be risk tolerance. You want to accept innovation requires experimenting and occasional failure. So if you're going to ask people to be innovative, you have to understand and you have to accept that there's times where they're going to fail, just like you fail, just like I fail. Resource allocation, providing dedicated time, budget, and tools for people to be creative and to explore, right? Give them that time to be innovative, to tap into their creative mindset. Recognition systems, creating and celebrating that creative thinking, not just successful outcomes. Maybe they thought of something that didn't come to fruition, but celebrate the work that they put in up to that point. Celebrate that work and let them know you appreciate them. Cognitive diversity, bringing together different perspective, backgrounds, and thinking styles. Sitting in a room and getting people to understand it's okay to be different. It's okay to challenge each other in a professional way without taking it personal and being personal, and respecting each other's voice and opinion. Collaborative norms, establish the practices that encourage idea sharing and building, right? Continuously say you want to hear from people. You want their ideas. You want them to speak out. But your behavior also has to show it. So it's not just saying it, it's showing it. Letting them know you appreciate what they're saying to you. Even if it's disagreeing with you, let them know you appreciate them disagreeing with you. and you're going to take that and consider what they say. I could tell you many a times I would go out and I'd already have the decision made. And I would go out and I would just ask somebody a question. I wouldn't tell them what I was doing or what decision it was. I would ask them a question because I wanted to see what they thought. And they gave me a totally different answer I never thought of. And by the time I walked away from them, I knew I had to change my answer because I wasn't right. But it gave me that opportunity to allow somebody to provide that input to me. I never assumed. Inquire about culture, valuing curiosity. Again, continuously questioning the status quo. If you walked around the room and you started to ask your employees, why do we do things this way? Are they going to tell you why things are done that way? Or are they going to use the catchphrase, I don't know, it's the way we've always done it. That's the way I was taught. You want to break that cycle. You want that person to say, well, we did it this way, but I identified this, and this is why we're changing it, because I want to make it better. Clear direction. Provide focused challenges that give creativity in a meaningful purpose, right? You just don't want to change. You want to make sure that whatever their innovative thinking that they have that you want to change, that there's purpose behind it, and it's going to be successful. Again, you must intentionally design these elements rather than leaving them to chance. As we look at creative culture in action, us as leaders, we could create an environment that kills somebody's great thought process and great ideas. So creative killers are criticizing ideas prematurely, right? Somebody's talking and you interrupt them and you basically shoot the idea down, or you shoot the idea down before it even gets evaluated. Overemphasizing efficiency, creating high stakes evaluations, creating an expectation that we can't reach, micromanaging, or just rewarding success. When you have an environment where employees are saying all they do is gripe, all the employees do is gripe, you're not out there rewarding the success in a balance. You kill the environment when you have a rigid hierarchy. When we are too top heavy, we have too many employees at the top in supervisory positions. Here's one that I know everybody can relate to: allowing political behaviors to infiltrate an organization. And it affects the way people do their job. And it affects the way people think. It affects the way that they're going to harbor their creative mindset because of the political behavior that sometimes is in an environment. Some of the creative catalysts, those positive things that you can do as a leader, you want to ask open-ended questions. You want to let them explore the topics. You want to let them explore and give them the time to do it. You want to build on others' ideas. Somebody comes up with an idea, bring it to the whole team. Let the team build on it. Separating ideation from evaluation. Celebrate learning from failure, as we talked about. Rotate leadership roles. I had a philosophy that I would move leaders around every 2 years. I would get them in a new position because I would create an environment where they couldn't get complacent. I wanted their brain to always be in an avenue to where I had their best, and complacency was not going to overtake them. So I moved them around every 2 years. And I just didn't move them to move them. I moved them for reasons, and I explained those reasons to them. But I share with you, complacency is a big issue. We get too comfortable, and then we get complacent. You want to protect the team from external pressures, right? We talked about politics. You as leaders, you have to deal with the politics internally, and then you have to deal with those politics that come from external sources. Your behavior is the single most important influence on any team when it comes to creativity. You make or break the creativity of your team with the power and influence you have over them and the environment that you're working in. When we look at creative problem solving, right, there's a process that you can follow through. You want to clarify, define the challenge, and gather the relevant data. Identify what the real problem is. Don't focus on the symptoms. Gather the facts in context. Listen to what the stakeholders or the people that are involved, listen to their perspectives and frame the challenge as an opportunity. Look at it as, yeah, this is painful, but we're going to get something good out of it once we get to the end. You want to generate numerous potential solutions. Suspend judgment. Again, don't jump to conclusions. Combine and build ideas. Some people may have a good idea that's only 50%. And then somebody else has another good idea that's 50%. Take those two ideas, put them together. See if that works for your environment. Develop and select and redefine and refine promising concepts. Evaluate ideas against their criteria. Strengthen concepts through iteration. And consider implementing challenges. Test your people, give them challenges. And I will tell you, 9 times, if not 10 times out of 10, when you challenge your employees, they're going to shine, and they're going to make you shine as a leader. Transform concepts into action. Create the implementation plan. Communicate it out. Make sure everybody knows. Address the potential resistance. No matter what plan you implement, you're going to have resistance. Monitor the progress and then make the necessary adjustments when you need to. And if you're monitoring the progress and you see that it's not working in certain areas or 100% the way it is, it's okay. Stop and fix it. Stop and fix it and give yourself the opportunity to be successful. Clarify finding the right problem, right? One technique you can use, you can continue to ask the word why. Use the word why and ask the question until you get to the end where you can't ask why anymore. Dig down into the root cause. Write it down on paper. I had a supervisor who we were talking, he'd get up on a whiteboard and he'd just write out all the information on a whiteboard. He mapped it out for us, right? I'm an individual. I don't have to do that. I can sit and visualize it in my head. He had to get up and he wrote it on the board. I appreciated that because it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, this is what's in my head. This is what he's writing. Are they aligned? Are they different? Where are they different? How are they different? And what's going to be more successful? What he's writing on the board or what's in my head? And there was times where it was in my head, and then there was other times where what he wrote on the board, that's what we needed to do because he mapped it out. And then ask the question. What I found is if you always have the theory of asking questions, you're going to create a good creative environment. Don't give answers. Don't give statements. Ask questions. Frame the problem as an opportunity. When you look at generating breakthrough solutions, you want to defer judgment. Again, you do not want to judge. You don't want to create an environment that people think they're going to be judged for speaking out. Because when you do that, you stifle the growth of your organization. And your employees will never forget that. They'll never forget that you shut them down and you didn't have to shut them down. And the only way that becomes better is you have to recognize you shut them down and you have to make it right as a leader. Developing and evaluating, refining ideas. Look at having a survey put out. Look at the democratic process, not the democratic process as far as the U.S. government politics, the democratic process that you can have within your organization. Give people the opportunity to have a vote on things. We talked about the furniture. I talked about changing your furniture around. Giving people that opportunity to give their viewpoint because they're going to look at how does it impact them? How does it impact them? Is it beneficial or feasible for them? How does it fit into their strategic outlook? And are they desired? Are they desired to improve the environment? right? And as a leader, you'll be able to look at employees to determine if you have somebody who's desired to make a difference or they're just a warm body in a shirt taking up space. And then you know how to navigate those type of employees. You want to tap in to their creative mindset. Implement turning ideas into reality, right? You want to validate it. You want to make sure the decision you made and implement it, test it. Get people's opinion. Ask somebody to come in to test your hypothesis. Ask one of the community members to come in and ask certain questions to the staff to see if they're going to provide the right answers. And that gives you a baseline, not to discipline the employees. It gives you the baseline without being in an environment where you have to take disciplinary action. It gives you the environment to where you can create training for them, or you can just improve on communication. You want to address the resistancy. Call people out behind closed doors. Call them out about the resistancy that you're seeing. And how can you get through it? Ask them to give you the solution. A lot of times we discipline individuals that sometimes they get mad. Well, I learned through the years to ask them the question. Before I even told them the outcome of the discipline, I would ask them the question. If you were sitting in my seat, how would you deal with this situation? Exactly the investigation that uncovered. How would you deal with it if you were in my seat? I role reversed it because I saw they were resistant, and it broke those barriers. Secure resources. Determine what people, funding, or support's needed to obtain for your staff. Create action plans. The biggest thing is communicating. When you look at the creativity mindset and trying to pull the creativity out of individuals, it's communicating. You want to make sure that they understand the environment and how you're communicating and you're on the same page. Implementing failure is the most common reason innovative ideas don't create value. So don't look at failure as a negative. Look at failure as a positive, that you're taking is an opportunity that's going to make the organization better. Individual creativity techniques, powerful methods to generate ideas when working alone, right? Again, you can look at mind mapping, right? You explore relationship between ideas and identifying patterns. You can use Scamper, systematic transformation using prompts, substitutes, combines, adapts, modify, put to others' use, eliminate, and reverse. This improves the existing product, services, or that process that you're implementing. Force connections. You can deliberate connect the challenge with random objects, images, or concepts, breaking out of the conventional thinking pattern. And if you're on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, there's a feed that I saw. One of my friends' child showed me this, is that there's two individuals on both sides of the ball. One ball is white, one ball is black. And the instructor asked them, tell me what color the ball is. And so the guy on the right says it's black. The guy on the left says it's white. They have two different views of the same one ball. And then the instructor has them switch. And now they see the other side. You're force connecting that image. You're force connecting that object. And you're breaking those conventional patterns to realize that there's more than one side to a ball. So it doesn't mean it's going to be the same color. Reverse thinking, invert the problem, right? Ask them, how could we make this worse? Then reverse the answer. Identify overlooking opportunities and breaking assumptions. Sometimes you got to ask the end game in order for you to find the solution. Group creativities. You can brainstorm, brain writing. Again, I talked about sitting at a table and just asking everybody to write down what they think how the office should be. And then have them give the paper to the next person. And then the next person has to add to what that person wrote. And then the paper gets passed along again. And now you're combining everybody's creativity into one. Small groups rotate. Again, I use the office, bouncing from office to office, like the individual I talked about. He looks at different offices, different restaurants, different lobbies. Move this group around. Let them kind of see the environment as a whole instead of living in their cubicle or their little work environment. Role storming. Participants adopt different personas, right? Customers, competitors, historical figures. You can role play in the environment. Lightning decision jam. Rapid cycle of problem identification, solutions generations, and prioritization. Time efficiency keeps energy, right? You can make it a game to where you're asking people to give a response in a quick answer, right? There's games out there. There's talk shows that are out there that Steve Harvey's on one, that Family Feud is one, that they have to answer in such a short time. You can use ideas like that, put it in your environment to create people to break out of their creativity block. Structure and facilitate is crucial as a leader when it comes to successful group creativity. Think of different things that your team can work together and tap into each other's mindset to be creative and make your organization better. Digital tools for creative collaboration. Again, you want to use these to support, right? There's whiteboards that are out there. There's different idea management software that you can use. There's visual collaboration. The Google Jamboard's out there. Chrome, I think, has one. Cisco has one. There's different tools you want to use, just like Microsoft Teams, right? All of us are probably in a position where we use Teams, we use Zoom, and there's several others that are out there that we use, right? Use those to your advantage to create those collaborations. Because sometimes you don't have to be in the same room. Use the tools at your advantage to break into people's environment, to be innovative. You want to facilitate the creative session, right? So before you go into any type of creative session, you want to clarify the purpose and desired outcomes. You want to sit by yourself and think about, okay, what's the purpose? Why am I doing this? Just don't do it to do it. Have a purpose, have an outcome. If you need to, send them pre-work to prime their thinking, right? I just sent a document to one of our consultants that I'm going to be talking to this afternoon. I sent him a document, said, hey, review this. We'll talk about it when I have time this afternoon. But I'd like your feedback on it because there's a lot of areas that your expertise can improve what we're doing here, right? So I gave him a compliment, and then I'm asking him before we even talk, look at this. So when I talk to him, he's already in the mindset because he's reviewed the document and I've tapped into his creative environment. Prepare diverse stimulus material, right? Sometimes it's sensitive depending on what you're trying to accomplish. You have to prepare for those environments. Create a detailed facilitation plan. Have a game plan. Know exactly what you're going to do before you go in the room. Don't just fly by the seat of your pants. During the session, make sure you establish that psychological safety. Separate divergent and convergent phrases. Manage dominant voices. And keep energy high and a varied activity, right? Keep it positive. If you have a negative Nelly that's sitting at the table, don't give them the opportunity. Don't embarrass them, but don't give them the opportunity to spread that negativity. And then after the session, document all the ideas that were talked about, communicate what those next steps are going to be, follow up on the commitments, and gather feedback for improvements. The whole process of this is you're trying to get buy-in, and you want them part of the identifying whatever needs to be changed, being part of the process of discussion, and then also being part of identifying the solution, and then also being part of implementing that solution as well. So taking it from creativity to implement it through innovation and put it into play. Your role as the leader is to create a condition for creativity, not generate ideas for yourself. or for anybody else. It's to create that idea or create that creativity in your employees. When you implement creative ideas, this is where innovation and performance is not taught in leadership. It's not taught enough. So how do you implement innovation ideas, right? There's a gap that we have in leadership is because we talk about things that we need to be doing and we don't focus so much on the innovative piece. And that's why I like this class, because it's not one of the traditional leadership topics. It taps into, we can make things better. We're all intelligent. Somebody saw something special in you to be in that leadership position that you're in. 94% of executives are dissatisfied with their organization's innovative performance, right? And that's a slap in the face for executives. They need to recognize they control that culture. They can control that environment. So that was a figure that I was kind of shocked that I had to take a double take when I found it. But the reality is because the environment that individuals create, the innovation's not there. We're not creating that positive environment to bring that creativity out. 70% of transformation initiatives fail because it doesn't reach the goals. So there's areas within our delivery that is preventing us to reach our goals. 6% of organizations rate themselves as excellent and translating ideas into reality. Right? So we may not be, from a research perspective, we may not be evaluating as well as we should be. And I attribute that to, in a leadership standpoint, we're not tapping and we're not training enough into bring out that creativity of our employees. And part of that is because we have so much to do, and every day there's more stuff being piled on top of us, and we don't have enough time in the day. So we're having to pick our wins. We're having to pick those areas that we know we need to get done because we have to answer to somebody else. We have to find ways to tap into people's creativity and break that cycle. If we can break that cycle, our employees are going to do better, and it's going to slow the organization down to where we're not living in crisis, and we don't have to worry about picking and choosing what we're going to do, because we'll be able to accomplish everything. And our time management, our innovativeness, the way our employees look at the environment, they're going to be more receptive and productive. So we can either leave it the way it is and live in crisis, or we can hit the timeout button and say, okay, how do we fix this? How can I tap into our people? We're already going through a hardship. Let's go through a hardship a little longer, but let's start changing things through innovation and having our employees be more creative. Overcoming organizational resistance, right? I talked about earlier is that we don't like change. We don't like being brought out of our comfort zone. So we can identify the map stakeholder landscape, identify all impacted stakeholders, know who's going to be impacted, influence what that impact is going to be, see where their interests and concerns are, and determine how influence or power dynamics, right? You have informal leaders that work for you in your programs. If they're complaining about that change or that creativity that you're implementing, they're gonna create more problems for you because they're the informal leaders, and people are going to see how they act, and it's going to create issues for you. You want to be able to identify that and map that out before it gets out of hand. Understand the resistance source. Fear of failure, fear of losing their job, the threat of expertise or status, right? We feel threatened as bosses sometimes when people are doing a better job than maybe we're doing or we perceive they are. The workload is a concern. We have to evaluate that. And then past negative experiences. People harbor feelings on how they were treated. It may not have been by you. It could have been somebody else. But they're harboring those feelings because it's the same organization that shot them down or didn't give them that opportunity of psychological safety. You want to create compelling narratives. Again, ask the question, why? Connect with the purpose and your mission. Tailor the communication to your audience. Again, know who you're speaking to, know the environment so you can tailor that communication. And build a coalition of support. Identify early adapters and influence. Again, I talked about that informal leader. Maybe bring that informal leader in and run the scenario by. And then have them go out and champion the cause for you. There's different ways to collaborate to get the support. Scaling innovation, right? From pilot to practice. We want to experiment with it, right? We want to take the opportunity to see how it's going to work, identify what the hypothesis is, design the low-cost rapid experiment, right? Put it out there, test it. See what feedback you get from it. Experiment with it. Then you put the pilot out there. You implement with limited scope. Select a representative test environment. Maybe not roll it out to your whole program. Just give it to 5 different employees and let them test it. And then when they're testing after a certain time, you refine it. You take their feedback and you change those processes with their feedback considered. And then you're going to scale it. You're going to expand it a little bit more for success. Create that standardized process. Develop training and the support system so you can roll it out. Monitor and adjust during the expansion, right? You got to be able to move. If you start to see it's coming off the tracks, you got to be able to stop the train and redevelop, regroup, and then re-implement it. And then create that institutional knowledge, right? You're creating that and you're aligning it to your formal systems and structures once you have all the kinks broke out. Document, share the best practices, share what went right, share what went wrong, share the hardships on how you went through the whole process to get to where you're at. People will appreciate that if they're involved in it. And they'll buy into the hard work because they're part of the solution and they see that you as a leader value them and value their creativity and value their innovative mindset. So as we look at embedding this in your leadership practice, again, ask the questions. Ask those powerful questions. There's a couple of them here. You can see, what if we approach this differently? What would our competitors do? Right? What do you think the community is going to say with this? How do you think that's going to impact them? It's never about you as the leader. It's always about others. Use those powerful questions. Recognize the creativity. Acknowledge that when someone takes a risk. You can always say, Brooke, I see that you went out of your comfort zone on this. I'm impressed that you broke out of your box. Although you may not have reached your goal, but let me tell you, you've done a great job. And just by breaking out of the box, you're a winner. You've grown and you've impacted the organization positively. Give them the wins that they deserve. Share the lessons of failure, but give them the wins. Recognize their behavior and how they're pushing forward and testing themselves. Create space for that creative mindset, right? Give them the opportunity, a dedicated time to just have the discussion, be a team. Give them the opportunity that they can sit around the water cooler or the conference table and just talk without the stress or the fear of issues. And I will tell you, you will get some dynamic solutions if you do it that way. Because if not, if they're not telling you, then you're going to have a problem. Excuse me. You're going to have a problem. Give them the opportunity to sit down in a relaxed environment to bring out their creativity. Creative leadership is not a special event. It's a daily practice. Again, it's a behavior. It's the way you lead. It's got to be part of your entire process. Today's PowerPoint, these are the resources all the information was pulled from. There's a lot of great books in here that allow for leadership and creativity. Even if you picked one and you read one or listened to one, it gives you the opportunity to improve your creative thinking and your innovation. And it gives you as the leader the opportunity then to pass that down to the employees that work for you. Lastly, I will share with you, as I've done in the past, and I will continue because I think it's a great reminder. Somebody saw something in you of value to put you in a leadership position. You have a special trait that somebody saw you to have a positive impact on their program, have a positive impact in your community that you serve. You owe it to yourself to tap into your creative mindset. You owe it to yourself to tap into taking that creativity that you have, turning it into an innovation and implement it within your program. One, to help your employees, and two, to help the community you serve, because that's why you do what you do. That's why you chose to be a leader, to take care of others. Embrace that. Not everybody can do what you're doing. You are valued. Never forget that people depend on you, people rely on you, and they rely on your creativity. They rely on you not to be status quo for them. So go out there, raise the flag, and prove your creativity, and prove your program. Deliver a better service to the employees that work for you. Deliver a better program to the community that you serve, and you will reap the benefits from your creativity and your innovation. So I thank you for your time today. Brooke, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Yay! Thanks for another awesome installation in the leadership series, Will. I have put the link to today's webinar feedback survey for y'all in the chat. If you don't mind taking a minute or 3 to do that. It is completely anonymous. Your name and email will not be connected. I'm the one who pulls them. I just see numbers. But it helps us know what's working for us at the Native Learning Center and what we can improve upon for the future. There is a portion of it where you can actually recommend webinar topics that we can attempt to get in the future. And then we also share the feedback with our instructors. So it helps everybody involved. We hope you can join us for our next webinar. That'll be next week on Tuesday, on St. Patrick's Day. And this is going to be on Robert's Rules of Order. Vince Franco will be instructing that. He's CEO of Next Venture Consulting. Our webinars are always the same time, so 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, or 10 a.m. Alaska. You can check out this as well as our other recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. This one will be posted tomorrow morning. They usually take overnight to generate. But I encourage you to check out that resource. YouTube is free for everybody to use, and we have a whole playlist called the Cathedra Webinar Archive. So you can check out all of our recorded webinars for about the past 2.5 years now. I'm going to put my email in the chat one more time, because if you're looking for something specific and struggling to find it, I can absolutely help you out with that. We hope you can check out our other upcoming events as well. We post about them to our social media, We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then if you are a podcast listener, we have an in-house produced one, the Hope a Thing, a Native American podcast. You can listen to that wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you are also able to watch the interviews with our special guests on our YouTube channel as well. That is a separate playlist. But otherwise, that is all we have for you today, folks. Wishing you a wonderful rest of your week and your weekend beyond. Will, thank you again for another incredible webinar. If y'all missed classes 1 through 8, I encourage you to go to the courses section here on the website. All of the PDFs of the slides are linked there, as well as the recordings. If you just kind of go through and thumb through the entire course, it's all laid out in the order of which they've occurred. So definitely something for you to check out if you've missed any along the way. I am going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but I will leave the webinar open.